around the staffing space is really around, okay, so you're running your business. Maybe you've run into hiccups. Maybe you haven't, because that hasn't been the case for everybody. But if you have a relationship with a client that's going well, how do you maintain it? So like, what are some ways to maintain that relationship and or improve it? And I think that happens a lot when you're making sure that you're connected to the needs of your client. And a lot of that is based on communication. So an example would be every conversation you have with your client shouldn't be based on what they can do for you. Of course, we understand that that's the premise, that's the dynamic of the business relationship, but you really want to think about, what can I do for you guys? And really think about what's happening. Is the client having, challenges around training? Are they having issues with no call, no shows? Is it, an issue around not finding quality staff? Whatever that may be, having that continual conversation will really build that relationship so that it's a lot less transactional and you're actually vested in the dynamic, so that if or when another company, comes through, they've already established, hey, this particular company is great because not only are they doing what they say they're going to do, but they're meeting the other needs of the business. They're helping us in other ways. I gave the example earlier about if you do CPR, that's a great way to help out a client. You're eliminating hurdles from their everyday process. Hosting career fairs, if that's something they'll allow you to do, is really great, a great thing to do, helping them with permanent placements, especially if the permanent placement is for like managerial or executive level jobs. That provides assistance. And it really gives what I don't think every business offers, is that added value. So what is your added value that you provide your client beyond the why they should work for you? So like, assuming you give the perfect pitch for the why they should work for you, the way you retain a client is that added value, that everything else, that what we see in a job description where it says duties as assigned. So when you're thinking about that, I encourage you to think out the box and also think through, and I shared with you guys, the YouTube channel, the World Staffing Summit. They did an amazing presentation, and I'll drop the title of it, around your client's journey or your employee's journey. And they did a work map of that process so that you as a business owner can see where you're having backlog or hiccups along the way. And the example would be, if you have a new employee and they go through the process and, they get hired and they sign up for their first shift, and then maybe after their first shift, no matter the facility, right? So after their first shift, they stop working shortly thereafter. And in the work map, you'll show like a stop. So you'll kind of follow 2 or 3 employees and follow where they got stopped in the process. It could be after their first shift. It might be through the compliance process. And really what that's telling you, if that's where they're stopping with your agency, is that there's something wrong there. There's something wrong with the compliance process, which many times is that the compliance process is too long. It's too long. It's too cumbersome. It's too many steps. It's not enough information. It's not well integrated. So many people stop there. I know that because I've experienced it, on both ends. And then 2, if an employee actually finishes the compliance process and starts and gets offer letter and so on and so forth, and they stop after their first shift, the potential issue could be either the facility or the expectations. And I'm going to give an example of both. So if it's the facility, and they kind of tie in together, it could be that maybe the facility is too far. Maybe the facility's level of acuity is too high. It could be that the facility isn't agency friendly. And we might do a video on what that looks like, but I think I've done one already. So those are some things to think about. But if it's not the facility, then it could be that you as a owner or your staff stop communicating with them after they started working. And that's a very, very common thing to do. So it's very common for small business owners to find the right person, get started, have them hired, have them work a shift, and then they no longer work another shift. And then, of course, they're hard to get in touch with. So when I say stop working, you can't find them again. And a lot of that is based on you as the business owner reconnecting with them and finding out what their experience was like. Because you can use that information when you talk to them about their experience to better tailor your job announcements, better tailor your interviews so that you're including this information with your potential employees so that there's no surprises. There's nothing worse as an employee amongst having issues with your pay than going to a facility where you thought it was one thing and then it turns out to be something different. So, and that can be a list of things, and I'm not going to go into the list, but having clear expectations, communications is really key. So if you haven't implemented the reaching back to your employee, especially your newer employees, to see how things went, you're doing yourself a disservice. I do know more and more of the tech-based apps and things of that nature have it automated. I think you can automate it with some of the platforms, but it's just kind of like a check-in. With so many people choosing to leave the industry, it's hard to really think that most people are leaving their agency that they spent all this time to get on board with just because of money, versus it being money and maybe a couple of other things, because you can communicate with money. Most people are pretty open in our industry to kind of say, oh, well, you just didn't pay enough, or the next agency paid more. And that's something that you can figure out beforehand, which I would encourage you to do. So you want to figure out what the other competitors are paying. You want to make sure that you know and understand the type of facility that you're sending your employees to, and then follow up with them. Find out, hey, how was your shift? I think one company that I'm thinking of that's kind of what that says post shift. It says, how was your shift? And allow them to do it as anonymously as possible, because many times people are hesitant to communicate issues because they might feel there might be some sort of retaliation behind it. So, in them filling out the survey, allow them to put their initials or something that keeps a level of anonymous for them, so that they're able to say and give you an honest answer about, hey, the shift really sucked, or it was really great, or these were the problems I had. I had a problem clocking in. I had a problem getting into the system, so that you can fix those things with your client, and you can have, when you have your weekly or monthly sessions with them, hey, let's try and let me see how I can help fix these issues, so that when we are bringing on our staff, these aren't hurdles they have to overcome as they're coming into the facility new. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking that are important around pivoting. Some other things are really, even though people hate to be in this time and in this space, it's also a good time to really evaluate your long-term goals for your business. So most of us are in it to win it, but if you're fairly new to the industry and you're kind of uncertain, take the time to really think about, hey, what do I want from this business, and what do I want from this experience? Do I want to continue to do per diem staff, or do I want to go into a travel space? Do I want to expand to another state? So that once the opportunity presents itself, you're able to really maximize on it to its fullest, and you're not kind of stuck, and you can make the internal changes that make it a little bit easier for you to pivot, especially if you're going to another state. You're able to hey, get the license, get a feel, go check out the types of facilities, talk to employees out there, connect with your staff to see if they're interested in going out there. If you're trying to get Joint Commission, times where things are a little bit slow, it's a great time to do it, even though I do know Joint Commission is an investment. But if your ultimate goal is to get into hospitals or get into other elements of the industry, during slower times is a good time to do that so that you're able to maximize when things go up. So many people say, do I think the industry will bounce back? Yeah. I've talked to a couple of people that said this is not unnormal. Even though I haven't been in healthcare forever, I have been in other industries that have experienced something similar to what healthcare is experiencing, as far as just like downturns, shifts, waves, all of that. And I think the impact for healthcare is a little bit more challenging because it feels like it happened all at the same time. It feels like we woke up one day and the lights were shut off and it was the pandemic. And then the lights got cut back on and we're kind of in this space post-pandemic, and there's not a lot of information around like how we maneuver through this. And it's like, post-pandemic, it's not only is it the technology, but it's everything else. It's the technology, and then there's also, people who aren't all that interested in working. It's the quality of workers, it's the pay, it's the bill rate, it's the facilities not paying, and the smaller agencies kind of being squeezed like oranges. So I definitely get and understand the impact. Hi, Kosi. So how do you plan for that? I think you plan the same way that you would plan in any other setting. In business, in any industry, it goes up and down. This is a period of time. This is a season. It's not permanent. Has the impact been huge? Yes. Will it change the way healthcare works? I think so. I think technology has introduced some of the change. I think the amount of healthcare professionals that have transitioned out of healthcare floor work has changed. I think the influx of newer nurses will change it as well. And then the thought process of how can we get the same outcomes with maybe less resources, and that to me would be more of the technology, the remote nurses, or the robot style nursing, or patient monitoring style nursing, that maybe we've seen more of in different cities, or at least being tested out. I think I want to say here in Johns Hopkins, they're testing a robot nurse. And if I find an article, I'll share it with you guys. I know in a lot of hospital systems throughout California and in other major cities, they have ICU monitoring or patient monitoring types of nursing, where a physical nurse maybe works a 7A to 7P, and then a virtual nurse in the room with the patient also works that same shift. So kind of like that different styling as far as what collaborative nursing would look like. So I think more of what it looks like is kind of the bigger key, right? So if you have less people in person, does that necessarily make a healthcare system more efficient? We'll see. It's still new. But is that what you'll see more and more of? I think so. I think more people, more companies, whether they're tech-based or healthcare-based, are incorporating that as a part of the plan. We also see more equipment and more technologies on, curing or allowing people to stay in home to be able to receive, supportive services or any sort of post-surgery or acute care types of things in a home setting. So I think the one thing that I will say is happening more and more is that more things are going to be home-based or home-based to some extent, whether it's from a patient standpoint of view or a healthcare person standpoint of view. You see that in the pharmacy space, home delivery of medications. We see that with Amazon introducing their piece into the healthcare market, which is going to be huge. If you're not paying attention to Amazon, be introduced Google, Tesla, all those companies are entering the healthcare market in a different kind of way, which will ultimately create more shifts and changes around what it looks like. From what I've heard, and I haven't done a lot of research, and I'm pretty sure I've shared it on here at least a few times. Amazon is creating their own clinic out here in Virginia. They have a whole multiplex. And what they're offering, which is not something that you see at all employers. I think Kaiser is probably something that might be comparable. Well, they're offering, hey, you don't have to sign up for insurance and do these outside things in order to get healthcare. We're bringing it in-house. We're offering you healthcare at work. We have a clinic. We have, pharmacies. We have different services. We have a nurse, a nurse practitioner, an MD. So, and then we have Amazon clinics throughout where you're living. And that'll really change, how the health insurance companies operate and even the offer of health insurance to employees as a benefit. So I think it's interesting. I encourage you guys to stay abreast. I think now that I think about it, we saw it happen a little bit with CVS, the Minute clinics, the Walgreens clinics. And then Walgreens also has hubs in the same way that CVS has hubs. So introducing that for sure, the pharmacy piece, the mobile lab techs, that's another piece where you don't have to go to Quest or LabCorp or any of those places. They'll come to your home and draw your blood. There's so many things. And that's why I say it feels like it's happening so rapidly, but it's kind of been slowly ticking along a little bit. And then, of course, telehealth. Telehealth is huge. I don't think it'll change. I love telehealth for so many different reasons, but the access, easy to make appointments, to get small needs taken care of, to even ease some of the backlog that a lot of family practices experience. So I know, I want to say, I'm trying to think. I think someone posted in the group, and maybe I posted something similar around this, and they posted in the group, how will our industry be impacted as we move to a less customer or patient or face-to-face type of interaction? So as time goes and we move further and further away from face-to-face interactions in the healthcare space, how will it impact our industry? So I'm going to drop that in the chat. You guys can feel free to answer. How do you feel as the healthcare industry moves away from face-to-face interactions? It will impact it overall. Yeah. Will impact the future of the industry. And that's a bigger thing because when you think about it, if you're a nurse or healthcare professional kind of coming into the industry now, it looks different. There is no paper charting. So as more people come into the industry that are younger, they will not have some experiences. Some may never paper chart, which isn't a bad thing. I didn't like paper charting myself. Some won't have certain valuable experiences. Like it's kind of two-folded. Like paper charting, I wasn't a fan of it at all, but it's a rarity in certain spaces that you see paper charting. But take away? What other ways could that positively or negatively impact the industry? The same thing with the technology. We have all these on demand. You can book your shift tonight, work tomorrow, book your shift in an hour, work in 2 hours, get paid the next day or get paid at the end of the shift. What are some of the positive and negative impacts of those types of things? The technology, I think there's definitely room for more technology as far as like the compliance piece. Hi, Lisa. I'm excited about that because the technology, the compliance piece in healthcare is very, very antiquated in my opinion, and time consuming. So I'm definitely excited to see that ramp up a lot. And then, what else can you offer your employees? That becomes the other piece. Like there's so many variables happening all at the same time